We start with Danny fighting off the box ghost and just basically using them as a punching bag to practice their powers before Sam and Tucker came in and used the Fenton thermos to capture them. Then reminded Danny that they still needed to study for the test. Though this go around, Tucker does not drop the thermos and accidentally release all the ghosts that were caught that night. We then see a ghost with a technology-based body watching, saying that Danny would make an interesting addition to his collection, before cutting back to Danny, who actually had time to study for the test. We then cut to the next day where Jack and Maddie were showing off the ghost gabber, which was supposed to be a translator, to which Danny mumbled under his breath about them speaking English sarcastically. This confused his parents and sister, but he'd said he needed to go and left to go to school. He'd found out that he got a C on the test and Sam and Tucker helped him study for, and sighed. Sam suggested Danny could up his grade if he did an extra credit assignment on the purple-back gorilla, and he'd responded at this point he didn't see much choice. He needed to get up to at least a B or his parents would kill him. Tucker mentioned he was halfway there, but Danny tells him that he's not in the mood for jokes. The three left to check out the gorilla and the techno-suit ghost then checked the computer, as a nerd asked if he was done, but was stuck to the wall with the ghost questioning if they thought they could sneak up on the ghost zone's greatest hunter before leaving. Danny falls asleep since there was nothing interesting going on, but there's no embarrassing photo scene as Tucker had nodded off on the other side of the desk Danny was sleeping at, and Sam goes to see if she could find out anything interesting. The gorilla then started to freak out, confusing her, as it started gesturing off to the side and she let it loose, with them then going to fight Skulker as he'd attacked one of the tigers. The gorilla and Skulker began to fight, and Sam went to try to wake up Danny, but the ghost hunter kept her quiet with some sort of ectoplasm gunk. But the gorilla began attacking him again, making him phase out, with them beating on the wall trying to get at him. This did wake up Danny, and he returned the gorilla to its habitat, closing the gate and questioning Sam why she let it out. This go around, Sam was actually able to tell Danny that there was a ghost attack and had some sort of weird tech. They decided to regroup back at his place, but Skulker attacked them there. He told Danny that he was disappointed and that he thought he'd put up more of a fight, to which Danny told him that he will, changing into his ghost form and then punching him into a wall. Sam tells Tucker that Tech Guy was the ghost from the zoo, as they try to get into the locked room with the booming from the fight causing Jazz to call out asking what's going on up there, but they flew through the floor of Danny's room and into the kitchen before they face down to the ghost portal. Skulker tells them that it's time to put him on display, activating the portal and preparing to leave. Danny screams as a strange energy began to come forth but was cut off by the hunter squeezing him by the throat, cutting off airflow from his lungs. Sam distracted Skulker with her talk about how they shouldn't be caging innocent people, and then Danny kicked him in the head, knocking him back into the portal as he struggled to breathe. Hearing his parents calling for him, he flies back up, going intangible before changing to human again. Once he got back to his room and kept them from entering his room, asking if they'd ever heard of knocking, and shoved the door shut before locking it and starting to clean and cover up the fight as best he could. They got to class the next day, and once clear to do so, Skulker appeared again, saying soon, as he'd set up a trap. Danny then went to his locker after class and opened it up as the hallways were clear. A bunch of ghostly chains wrapped themselves around Danny, slamming him into the locker on the other side of the hallway. Changing into his ghost form again, he then broke the chains apart as they vanished into thin air, with Skulker appearing ready to fight again. Danny yelled that he'd had just about enough of Skulker, growing angrier as his hands began to glow with a green energy, and he'd punched them off down towards the other side of the hall. Tucker questioned where that came from, and Danny tells him that he has no idea, but he likes it. Then flew off to chase down Skulker and keep fighting, breaking part of Skulker's suit and they decided to retreat for now, but tells Danny that he'd be back soon, referring to him as Ghost Child rather than by his name. Being a bit more cautious, Danny prepared to open up his gym locker, but did so from the side of it so that whatever might be in there wouldn't blast him directly. This was a good idea, as there was some sort of blue-colored glue that blasted out, covering Dash, who was nearby, sticking him to the wall and covering his eyes. Skulker growled and decided to set up a different tactic, not bothering to fight Danny this time, letting them keep to their schedule and going to the gorilla exhibit since he was mentioning going there. They'd waited for Danny to show up, but no such luck. It was over an hour later and he got tired of just sitting there and jumped out of his vantage spot, yelling that the gorilla was meant to be bait. Sam and Tucker show themselves, having been using a makeshift suit to appear like the gorilla, and Danny appears, again with his hands glowing, and he'd slammed into Skulker, busting part of their armor as the two began to fight again. The real gorilla also joins in, attacking the hunter from behind and knocking them down to the ground as it started breaking his suit apart. After finding out Skulker was just a little green blob with limbs, they seal him into the thermos. Danny, then being so close to the gorilla, finds out something important, and we see Mr. Lancer checking a magazine article and tells them that they were impressed with Danny's dedication to getting his grades up, then puts the test and extra credit assignment onto his desk, showing that he'd brought it up to a B+, which was good enough for him.